sweating. It's hot. And I'm just talking about my outfit. It's been a minute since I filmed a video, and I know all 29 of you have been waiting with bated breath. So I just thought I'd pop on here and tell a seasonally appropriate tale of the scariest vacation that I've ever been on. So every summer, me, my mom, and my sisters would rent a house in upstate New York for a week. And every house that we stayed at was a little bit cursed. Like, we never ended up staying at the same house twice, but there was one house that we stayed in that was the scariest place that I've ever slept in my life. And I used to take naps on Clinton Road for fun. So we get to this house, right? And it's pretty secluded. There's trees on either side, and then this long hill that goes down to the water. And that's cool because we're a bunch of loud-ass Jersey girls, and we're gonna get drunk and sing Bruce Springsteen songs all night, and we don't want to rile up any of the locals, right? But that also meant that no one could hear us scream. So I'm a nosy person, and whenever I get to these houses, I like to do some exploring, get into people's shit, because a lot of these houses are just people's like family lake houses that they just rent out for like the weeks that they're not there. So sometimes people's stuff would just be lying around. So when I first go inside, there's like family pictures on the wall and various tchotchkes lying around, and I don't really think anything of it because we've stayed in other houses that had people's stuff in it. But what I do notice is that the house seems dark. And I mean, it's midday on the lake and there's plenty of windows, but it just felt like the place had no light. So I check out the first floor, and my mom's gonna get the master bedroom down there on the first floor. So then me and my sisters are gonna stay upstairs. So I decide to go check it out, and I get to the top of the stairs, and when I get up there, I notice there are 3 doors. And one of these 3 doors is locked. And I'm immediately like, you know, this is some kind of hider in the house situation. Like, there's somebody in there. When we all fall asleep, he's gonna come crawling out and lick between all of our toes, right? And I know what you're thinking. It's probably just where the family who owns the place stores all the stuff that they don't want people to touch when they're not there, right? Well, that's your reality, okay? I have anxiety. And my reality is just a non-stop reel of worst case scenarios. Like, every situation is like, how is this gonna end up as an episode of Unsolved Mysteries, right? So yes, it's not the good sherry glasses in there. It's some cannibal family reject. And the second I close my eyes, them Gary Busey chompers are gonna be nibbling at my little piggies. So of course, I decide to take the room directly across from this cursed locked room. Well, my sisters are going to share the next room down, and then at the very end of the hall, there's like this kind of playroom, all right? And it's real bright in there, there's all these windows, and there's all this stuff in there. Like old toys and board games and kids' books and stuff. It's nothing really new, but it's nothing too old either. I'm guessing like 60s to 70s. Like, I'm not talking about like a Victorian child's room or something. There's not like a creepy little cobweb-covered rocking horse. It's like mostly 60s and 70s stuff. And there's also all these photo albums. And right away, I'm like, all right, I gotta check these out. Because I love old photos. I collect weird ones, and whenever I'm in one of these houses, I think I'm gonna uncover some kind of crazy mystery. Like, I'm gonna open this album and it's gonna be full of Polaroids of missing people or something. So I sit down with this album, and it turns out it's like a wedding album from the 60s. And like, there's no Zodiac killer cipher tucked into the pages or anything. It's just basic 60s wedding stuff. Kitschy, all in black and white. But I'm not really that interested in it overall. But I notice, after a while, that I'm flipping through this book, and I'm sitting here perusing every single photo, turning every page real careful. Like, you know, if somebody was showing you pictures of their wedding, and you felt like you had to act more into it than you really are. Like, oh yeah, nice napkins, check out the centerpieces, baby, did you bedazzle those mason jars by yourself? You know, shit like that. And that's when I realized I felt like someone was watching me. And at that point, I just, nope. I put the album back on the shelf and I left the room. And as the week went on, we all agreed that there was something weird about this house. Like, no matter where you went, it felt like someone was watching you. And like, when you're at these houses and there's people's pictures on the wall and stuff, like, it can feel weird, like you're in a stranger's house. But this was different. I mean, I didn't even snoop that much, and I've been in rental houses where I've stayed up all night watching people's home videos on VHS, trying to uncover some kind of hidden snuff film that's tucked into them or something. So the fact that I didn't snoop around in people's shit, that's a big deal. And it got to the point where none of us wanted to be in that house alone. Like, if we were down by the water and one of us had to go pee, it was buddy system. Like, somebody's got to come up with you. But nothing really fucked up happened until our last night there. So we started off the night by heading into town. We got dinner, we went to the bar. There was like this hookah lounge that we used to like to hang out at that had like a little seating area outside by the lake, and we just sit there. So then at the end of the night, we were like, all right, let's just take a drive around the lake before we head back home. So my mom's driving and we're all in the car, me, my mom, and my two sisters, all right? And by the way, I'm guessing that my sisters were probably around like 19, so I was probably like 24, 25, something like that. So we're in the car. We're smoking some cloves, we're listening to music, singing, driving around the lake, looking at all the views, beautiful, right? And we start to realize that somebody's following us. And at first I'm like, okay, maybe it's just a coincidence that this pickup truck's been behind us for a while, but after a little bit, I was like, guys, I think this car might be following us, because they've been behind us for a while. It's so dark out there on these secluded roads, there's no street lights, and I can't see the driver. But I definitely think he's following us. So my mom starts making some random turns onto like these weird, super, even more secluded, like one-lane roads that have like maybe one house down them. And the car keeps following us. So at this point, we're all shitting bricks because we're like, this guy's definitely following us. And I'm like, fuck, you know, us cute bitches were out in town. Some slack-jawed local yokel saw us and was like, I'd like to have their heads on my mantle. And now we're fucked. And my mom and sisters are like, we can't lead him back to the house. And I'm like, why not? Maybe then him and fucking Black Christmas Billy that's in the closet can duke it out for who gets to wear our skin suits tonight. But we end up losing him somewhere along the way. And eventually when we're like reasonably sure that there's nobody following us anymore, we finally go back to the house. Now, it's our last night there. So I'm not gonna let some fucking maximum overdrive bullshit ruin my last night of vacation. So I'm like, well, let's hang out on the porch for a while. And my mom's tired, so she goes off to bed, and me and my two sisters are sitting out on this like little screened-in porch in the back. And we're just hanging out, like having drinks, listening to music, whatever. And as we're sitting there, we hear footsteps coming up the side of the house. And my first thought is, you know, maybe it's like a cop coming to tell us that we're being too loud or something, so I turn off the music real quick. But then I realize there's not even any neighbors around to call in a noise complaint. And the footsteps, when I turn off the music, they just stop. So I get up and I go to the edge of the porch. And I look down the side of the house and there's no one there. And suddenly this creepy old house that we've been terrified of all week is like our refuge. And we run into the house because whatever Ted Bundy ass motherfucker is out there is way scarier than a bunch of ghosts that want to watch us look at their wedding albums. And once we're inside, my mom's German Shepherd starts going crazy. She's pacing the house, growling at all the doors and windows, just going back and forth from the front to the back. And my mom gets up and she's like, what's your fucking problem? And we're like, there's literally a killer outside. Like, the guy in the pickup truck must have followed us or something, like he's here. So we run around and we make sure all the doors and windows are locked. And then we sit there and we wait. And the dog, meanwhile, is still pacing around, growling. She's got all of her hair on end. And we're like, we're definitely... You know what I mean? Like, it's the end for us. But eventually, my drunk-ass sisters are like, we're going to bed. And I'm like, well, that's all well and good for you, but I'm the one who has to sleep in a room alone across from the cannibal closet, so I don't want to go to bed. But after a while, even my mom, who's super paranoid, is like, crisis averted, I'm going to bed too. So I feel like I don't really have a choice. I mean, like, what am I gonna do? Just sit there and wait to die alone? Like, no, I'm gonna go up and go to bed too. So I go upstairs. And when I get to the top of the stairs, I hear voices. And I think to myself, I'm like, those bitches are still awake. So I go over to the door to my sister's room and I put my ear against the door. And I realize that the voices aren't coming from inside their room. And so I look down to the dark of that playroom at the end of the hall, and I hear a voice call out, "Yoo-hoo!" Now I can't take anymore. So I run into my room and I turn on the light, and the only light in the room is like this little bedside lamp. So I turn on the light and I sit down on the edge of the bed. And I'm just shitting bricks at this point. Like, I have the door closed. It doesn't lock, but it's like one of those cheap little plywood doors. So I'm just like sitting there, like staring at the door with only the bedside lamp on, just like, what the fuck, what the fuck? And as I'm sitting there, the light next to the bed turns off. And it's dark in the room. And in the dark, I closed my eyes. And I had this overwhelming feeling that someone was in the room with me. And that if I opened my eyes, I'd see them there. And I've always wanted to see a ghost, but like, whatever this was, I didn't want to see it. So I kept my eyes shut, and I said, I'm not going to look at you. I said it out loud, I'm not going to look at you. And then I laid down on the bed, keeping my eyes shut the whole time, and I fell asleep. I can't believe I fell asleep after that. I don't even know how it happened, but I fell asleep. And I don't know if I was just so exhausted from the terror of all this genre switching between haunted house movie and slasher flick, but I stayed asleep. Because apparently, a little while later, a huge storm hit, and my mom and my sisters all woke up to this like cataclysmic banging sound. And they realized that the awning over the back porch had ripped off and was slamming against the side of the house. So they ran out there in the middle of the storm, and they were trying to secure it like a ship's sail in a storm, almost getting pulled off into the air and shit. Meanwhile, I'm just sleeping peacefully through the whole thing. And they came in to check on me, and I was just assed out. I mean, like, I didn't even wake up when they came in the room. Like, I left my body and my soul entered another realm or something. I don't even remember what I dreamt about or anything. I literally, from the moment that I laid down on the bed and said, I'm not gonna look at you, I don't remember anything until the sun rose the next morning. And suffice to say, when the sun fucking rose and we woke up the next morning, we got the fuck out of that house.